I never saw it coming. My name is Mark, and I used to think I had a perfect life. I had a decent job, a cozy home in suburban Chicago, and a wife, Caroline, who I believed was my partner for life. We'd been married for 6 years, and while there were ups and downs, I thought we were in a good place. A little routine, perhaps, but isn't that what marriage is all about? Lately, though, there were signs. Small things at first. Caroline started taking longer to reply to texts, going out with her friends more often and coming home late. She always had excuses. Oh, I lost track of time at work, or we went out for drinks after the meeting. But a part of me started to doubt. I began to notice her phone had a tight grip on her. She was always on it, and when I walked into the room, she'd quickly shove it into her pocket like she was hiding something. One evening, I found myself pacing the house, waiting for Caroline to come home from one of her late-night outings. It was almost midnight when I heard the familiar sound of her car pulling into the driveway. I tried to act natural as I made my way to the living room, but inside I was filled with a sense of dread that clung to me like fog. As she entered, she was laughing too carefree for my liking. "Hey, babe," she chirped, her hair bouncing as she walked by. "Hey," I replied, trying to sound casual, but as she walked past me, I caught a whiff of her perfume. It was different, something floral and intoxicating. I decided to shrug it off, but it lingered in my mind. The next day, I made a plan to confront her. I needed proof. I needed something concrete to hold on to. So I did what I never thought I would. I snooped. I waited until she left for one of her meetings and dug into her things. Inside her dresser, amid the neatly folded clothes, I found her phone. It was locked, but I had seen her type the code countless times. I took a deep breath and entered it. As soon as I unlocked it, my heart raced in my chest. I scrolled through her messages and found one that made my stomach drop. It was from Jason, her golf instructor. "Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. Your husband is so clueless." The words hit me like a punch. My mind was swirling as I read each message, each one more incriminating than the last. I felt sick. I couldn't believe it. Caroline was having an affair with my golf instructor, the man I had trusted to teach me the game I loved. I thought about how she had been spending so much time at the golf course, how she would come home all bubbly and excited. I could barely hold back my anger as I thought about it. When Caroline returned, I confronted her. My heart was pounding, a mix of anger and betrayal coursing through me. I tossed the phone on the kitchen table and she looked at me with wide eyes. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice trembling. Her reaction was not what I expected. Instead of guilt or shame, she laughed. "Mark, you've got it all wrong. You're being ridiculous." "Ridiculous? I found messages, Caroline. You've been sleeping with Jason." I shouted, the words spilling out like venom. The look on her face shifted from amusement to annoyance. "Fine, yes, I've seen him a couple of times, but it's not what you think. It's just sex and it doesn't mean anything. You're so wrapped up in your own world that you didn't even notice me slipping away." It felt like someone had pulled the ground from under me. How could she justify this? I was floored. I stumbled back, trying to process what she was saying, realizing that her betrayal was more than just physical, it was emotional. In that moment, my heart shattered, and the pain I felt was unlike anything I had experienced before. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but instead I took a deep breath and walked away. I needed time to think. As I paced the house, my emotions twisted from anger to sadness. I felt betrayed, lost, and utterly alone. What had I done wrong? Surely I wasn't the perfect husband, but I never deserved this. The man I had trusted with my wife was the one who had taken her from me. And in that moment of turmoil, a seed of revenge started to take root in my mind. If they thought they could take everything from me without consequences, they had another thing coming. After that confrontation, I felt like I was living in a fog. The disbelief and pain were consuming me, and I struggled to find a way forward. I turned to my friends for support, but they only offered typical platitudes. "You'll get through this," they said. "You're better off without her." But those words felt hollow. I couldn't just let it go. I needed to do something, anything, to regain control over my life. It hit me one night while I was tossing and turning in bed, unable to sleep. I remembered how much I used to love golf. Before Caroline and I got married, I would spend weekends out on the course, perfecting my swing, enjoying the camaraderie with friends. But after we tied the knot, my passion for the game faded. I let it slip away, just like I let Caroline slip away. That night, I made a decision. I would reclaim my life and my confidence by becoming better than I had ever been. I was going to take golf seriously again, not just as a hobby but as a challenge. And it was time to show Caroline that I could rise above her betrayal. The next morning, I signed up for lessons at the same golf club where she had met Jason. I figured if she could have her fun, then I could become something more than what she had reduced me to. I hired a coach, a no-nonsense former pro named Rick, who was more than willing to whip me into shape. As the days turned into weeks, I threw myself into my training. I would wake up at dawn, hit the driving range, and practice until my hands were sore. Rick was tough, pushing me to my limits, but I welcomed the challenge. I learned the intricacies of the game, the strategies, and the mental toughness required to excel. Every swing of the club became a release, a way to channel my anger and pain into something productive. I also began to focus on my physical fitness. I hit the gym, lost weight, and started eating healthier. I wanted to be in the best shape of my life, not just for golf, but for myself. I felt a sense of empowerment returning that I hadn't experienced in years. As I improved my game, I could sense the shift in my mental state. The anger that had once consumed me started to morph into determination and drive. Meanwhile, Caroline was still living her life, seemingly unaffected by the chaos she had caused. I saw her occasionally at the golf club, laughing with Jason and flaunting their relationship as if I didn't exist. But instead of feeling crushed, I felt a surge of motivation every time I saw them together. They were living their version of happiness, but I was working towards my own. I would show them both that I could be better than I ever was, and I would do it without her. As the summer approached, I signed up for a local tournament. It wasn't just any tournament, it was a big one, and the whole town would be watching. I wanted everyone to see me succeed, to show Caroline that I had risen from the ashes of her betrayal. I practiced relentlessly, pushing my limits with each session on the course. My skills sharpened, and I could feel the confidence building within me. On the day of the tournament, I was a bundle of nerves. I arrived at the club early, soaking in the atmosphere and the thrill of competition. I could see Caroline and Jason mingling with friends, their laughter ringing out like a taunt. I swallowed hard but reminded myself of my purpose. This was my moment. As the tournament began, I played with a focus I hadn't experienced before. Each swing felt powerful, and every putt was executed with precision. I could feel the eyes of the crowd on me, and instead of feeling intimidated, I embraced it. I was not just playing for a trophy. I was playing for my dignity, my pride, and my revenge. Round after round, I held my ground. I pushed through the challenges, refusing to let my emotions get the best of me. I could sense Caroline's gaze on me, and it fueled my determination. With each hole, I climbed the leaderboard, and soon enough I found myself at the top, leading the pack. As I neared the final holes, I could see the disbelief on Caroline's face. The realization that I was not just a bystander in my own life anymore hit her like a freight train. I was in control, and I was winning, not only in golf but in reclaiming my sense of self. With one last putt, I sunk the final shot and the crowd erupted. I had won. The adrenaline coursed through my veins, and I felt a sense of vindication that I had never experienced before. I looked over at Caroline, who was clapping half-heartedly, and for the first time I felt pity for her. She had chosen a path that ultimately led to her downfall. As I accepted my trophy, I knew this victory was just the beginning. I had come back stronger, wiser, and ready to take on whatever life threw at me next. I was not just a husband seeking revenge. I was Mark, a man who was taking charge of his destiny. The tournament victory felt surreal, almost like a dream that I didn't want to wake up from. As I held the trophy high above my head, the cheers of the crowd reverberated in my ears, a euphoric anthem to my newfound strength. I savored the moment, knowing that it was more than just a trophy. It was a symbol of my triumph over betrayal. But that victory wasn't just for me. It was for all the emotions I had swallowed for the past several months. As the crowd dispersed and my friends congratulated me, I caught a glimpse of Caroline standing at the edge of the cluster of people, her expression a mix of jealousy and disbelief. I had become someone she didn't recognize, a man who was no longer defined by her actions. I felt a rush of satisfaction and turned my back to her, focusing instead on the future ahead of me. The days that followed my win were a whirlwind. I was approached by local news outlets wanting to cover my story, intrigued by how someone could rise from the ashes of betrayal to claim victory. I became something of a minor celebrity in our town, and it felt good to be in the spotlight for the right reasons. I was no longer just Mark, the husband. I was Mark, the golfer. It was a refreshing change. With my newfound notoriety came opportunities. I received sponsorship offers, invitations to more tournaments, and the chance to partake in charity events that raised money for various causes. I immersed myself in this world, surrounded by people who shared my passion for the sport. I made connections with other golfers, swapping stories and tips, and I relished being part of a community that celebrated each other's successes. But my relationship with Caroline, that was a different story. She reached out in the days following my victory, attempting to play nice. "Hey, can we talk?" She texted one afternoon. I hesitated, remembering the pain of her betrayal, but curiosity got the better of me. Maybe she wanted to explain, or maybe she was looking for a way back into my life. I decided to meet her, but only on my terms. We sat across from each other at a small cafe, the tension palpable. "Congratulations on the win," she started, her tone laced with a hint of sarcasm. "I always knew you had it in you." "Thanks," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's been a hell of a journey." She leaned in, her expression shifting from aloof to serious. "I've been doing a lot of soul-searching, Mark. I want to understand what went wrong between us." "What went wrong?" I echoed, incredulous. "You cheated on me, Caroline. You crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. What's there to understand?" With a sigh, she looked down at her coffee, playing with the handle of her mug. I know I messed up, but I never meant to hurt you. I just felt neglected, like we weren't in sync anymore. With Jason, everything felt exciting and new. I felt a surge of anger rising within me. Exciting and new, so you chose to sleep with someone else instead of talking to me about it. That's your excuse." She opened her mouth to respond, but quickly shut it again. I could see the conflict in her eyes. "I get it, I really do," she finally said. "But I want a second chance. You've changed, and I miss the old us. We could make it work again." The audacity of her words stunned me. Here she was, sitting in front of me, asking for forgiveness after everything that had transpired. I realized then that she didn't just miss me. She missed the life we had together, the stability, the comfort. She saw my success and wanted to capitalize on it. But I wasn't the same man who would blindly accept her back. "Caroline, you can't just waltz back into my life because I've become successful. You made your choice and I've made mine. I'm building a life that doesn't include you." Her eyes widened with disbelief, and for a moment I thought she might cry, but instead she straightened her back, regaining her composure. "You think you're better off without me. You'll realize how lonely it will be." "Lonely?" I scoffed. "I've never felt more confident or focused in my life. I'm surrounded by people who uplift me, not tear me down. You chose to betray me, and I won't let you back in." With that, I stood up and walked away. I felt liberated, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I had stood my ground, and for the first time, I was prioritizing my own happiness over someone else's demands. The encounter made me realize that I had truly moved on. I was no longer defined by my relationship with her. In the days that followed, I threw myself deeper into my training and my golf career. The thrill of competition became my addiction. I entered more tournaments, and with each passing event, my skills sharpened further. I was determined to make my mark, not just locally but on a larger scale. Yet, while I was out on the course honing my talent, Caroline's presence lingered in the back of my mind. I knew she was watching, perhaps hoping I would falter, but I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. I was focused on my goals and wanted to achieve what I never thought possible. One afternoon, as I was practicing my swing, I spotted Jason on the range with a group of friends. The sight turned my stomach. I wanted him to know that I was thriving without Caroline. So I stepped up to the tee box, took a deep breath, and hit the ball, striking it with precision. It soared through the air, landing right next to Jason. I could see him glance over, surprise evident on his face. I couldn't help but smirk. It felt good to remind them both that I had not only survived their betrayal but had transformed it into motivation to rise above. Soon enough, I would show them the true meaning of success on my own terms. I was no longer just playing golf, I was playing for redemption for myself, and I was just getting started. As the weeks turned into months, I continued to immerse myself in golf and the surrounding community. I was becoming a regular face at tournaments, often placing in the top spots. The rush of competition was exhilarating, and the camaraderie I found among other golfers became a much-needed balm for the wounds Caroline had inflicted. I was building something new, a life that was mine and mine alone. But no matter how much I tried to focus on my successes, the shadow of my past lingered. Caroline and Jason were often present at events, and I could feel their eyes on me, watching, judging, perhaps even regretting their choices. I knew that every time I stepped onto the course, I was not just playing against other golfers. I was competing against the ghosts of my past. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling tournament, I decided to treat myself to a nice dinner at a local steakhouse. I wanted to celebrate my recent win and enjoy a night out. As I walked in, I didn't expect to see Caroline and Jason sitting at a table in the corner, sharing a meal and laughing like they were the only two people in the world. At first, I felt a pang of anger, but I quickly quelled it. I was not going to let their presence ruin my evening. Instead, I walked up to the hostess, put on my best smile, and requested a table on the opposite side of the restaurant. I could feel their eyes boring into my back as I passed by, and for a moment I considered turning around to acknowledge them. But I didn't. I was above that now. As I settled into my meal, I noticed that I had become somewhat of a spectacle. Other patrons were whispering and pointing at me, recognizing the golfer who had made a splash in the local scene. I savored my steak and chuckled at the irony of it all. Here I was, thriving in my own right, while the two of them were stuck in a relationship built on deception. Just as I was finishing my meal, I noticed Caroline getting up from her seat, clearly making her way toward me. My heart raced, and I prepared myself for yet another confrontation. "Mark," she said, forcing a smile as she approached my table. "Mind if I join you for a moment?" I looked up at her, feigning surprise. "Sure, if you're looking for a lesson on how to win." Her expression faltered for a split second before she regained her composure. "I see you're still using that competitive edge. It's impressive, really." "Thanks," I replied, maintaining a cool demeanor. "Just like you used to say, practice makes perfect." She winced at my words, and for a moment I could see the vulnerability hidden beneath her facade. "I came to apologize," she began, her voice dropping to a softer tone. "I realize I messed things up between us, and I'm not expecting forgiveness. I just want to be honest." "Honest?" I scoffed. "You had your chance at honesty when you decided to betray me. What do you want from me now?" "I want you to know that I've been reflecting on my choices. It was stupid to think I could find happiness in the arms of someone else. I thought it would fill a void, but instead I just ended up losing you." The sincerity in her tone caught me off guard, but I quickly reminded myself of the pain she caused. "And what do you think I'm supposed to do with that information? Sit here and feel sorry for you?" "No, I wanted to acknowledge my mistakes," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I see how happy you are now, and honestly it makes me realize how foolish I was. I miss you, Mark." I shook my head, feeling a wave of frustration wash over me. "You miss me because you see me succeeding. You miss the idea of having a partner, but you don't get to just come back into my life when it's convenient for you." She looked down as if the weight of her choices was finally hitting her. "I understand," she replied quietly. "I don't expect you to take me back. I just wanted to express how I feel." I softened slightly, but not enough to let her in. "Well, I appreciate the honesty, but I've moved on. I'm building a life that doesn't involve you." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, and for a moment I felt a flicker of sympathy, but I quickly pushed it aside. This was not about her anymore. It was about me reclaiming my life, and I wasn't going to let her disrupt that journey. "Okay then," she said, wiping her eyes. "I just wanted you to know I'm proud of you." With that, she turned to leave, and I watched her walk away, A part of me felt a strange sense of closure. I didn't need her approval or validation. I had found my worth outside of our relationship. As I left the restaurant, I couldn't shake the mix of emotions churning inside me. I had finally confronted Caroline again, and although it didn't change anything between us, it reaffirmed my stance. I was not going to be defined by her choices anymore. I was Mark, the golfer who had risen from the ashes, and I was determined to keep climbing. That night I returned home feeling empowered. I spent hours practicing my swing in my backyard, each strike a reminder of my growth. I was no longer just a husband seeking revenge. I was a man carving his path, one swing at a time. And as much as I wanted to put Caroline and Jason behind me, I knew I still had one last card to play, one final act of revenge that would solidify my new life. The weeks following my encounter with Caroline felt like a turning point. I had successfully navigated the tumultuous emotions surrounding our past, and I was more focused than ever on my golf career and personal growth. I was rising through the ranks, gaining recognition in local tournaments, and even considering entering some regional competitions. Each round of golf was not just a game, it was a testament to my resilience. But there was still a lingering urge for closure, a desire to remind both Caroline and Jason that their actions had consequences. I wanted them to know that their betrayal would not define me. It was time to turn my hard-earned success into a lesson for them. One chilly evening, I sat in my living room, scrolling through social media when I stumbled upon a post announcing a charity golf tournament, one that Caroline and Jason were both participating in. It was a big deal in our community, and they were listed as one of the top pairings. The thought of seeing them together again sent a spark of anger through me, but also a rush of adrenaline. This was the perfect opportunity to demonstrate just how far I'd come, and to show them that I was no longer the man they could walk all over. Without thinking too much about it, I signed up for the tournament. I contacted my coach, Rick, who was just as excited about the idea. "This will be your chance to really show them what you're made of," he said. "Let's get you ready to knock this out of the park." In the days leading up to the tournament, I trained harder than I ever had before. I pushed myself beyond my limits, practicing my drives, my putts, everything. I wanted to be at my absolute best. I could feel the anticipation building, and I was ready to channel my anger into a fierce performance on the course. On the day of the tournament, I arrived at the golf club early, soaking in the atmosphere. I could see the familiar faces of fellow golfers, all eager to compete for a good cause. As I made my way to the registration table, I spotted Caroline and Jason. They were laughing and joking with other players, completely at ease. I felt a knot form in my stomach, but I focused on my breathing. I was here to win, and that's exactly what I intended to do. The tournament kicked off, and I found myself paired with two other players who were just as competitive as I was. My focus sharpened as we moved from hole to hole. With each swing, I felt the power coursing through me. I was hitting the ball with precision, sinking putts with ease. The scoreboard reflected my hard work. I was leading the pack. As I reached the final holes, the intensity heightened. I could see Caroline and Jason trailing not far behind, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction watching their expressions shift from carefree amusement to concern. They were realizing that I was not just another competitor. I was a force to be reckoned with. When I reached the 18th hole, I was neck and neck with one of the other players. The pressure was palpable, but I thrived on it. I lined up my shot, taking a deep breath as I focused on the hole. I could feel the weight of their stares burning into my back, but I pushed it all aside. This was my moment. I swung the club, sending the ball sailing through the air. It landed on the green, rolling closer and closer to the pin until it finally dropped in. The roar of the crowd erupted around me, and I couldn't help but raise my arms in triumph. I had done it. I had won the tournament. As I walked toward the clubhouse, the cheers echoing in my ears, I spotted Caroline and Jason standing with their mouths agape. Their expressions were a mixture of disbelief and frustration, and I relished every moment of it. I had not only beaten them on the course, but had also shown them that I was not defined by their betrayal. After accepting my trophy, I made my way through the crowd, soaking in the congratulations from fellow golfers and friends. I felt a sense of vindication like no other. I had transformed myself into someone who was not just surviving but thriving, and I wanted them to see that. As I passed by Caroline and Jason, I couldn't resist the urge to say something. Thanks for the motivation, I smirked, letting the words hang in the air. I'll always remember this day. There. Faces flushed with embarrassment, and I could see Jason's jaw clench in response to my jab. Caroline, on the other hand, looked like she might cry. I felt a rush of power surge through me. This was what I had wanted from the beginning, a chance to show them their choices had consequences. I was no longer the man they had betrayed. I was a new force in my own right. As the night wore on and the tournament came to a close, I found myself surrounded by friends and supporters, celebrating my victory and the cause we had all played for. I shared laughter and stories, soaking in the joy of the moment. But there was something deeper at play beneath the surface. I was finally free from the chains of my past. Reflecting on the journey that had led me to this point, I realized how vital it was to take control of my own life. I had faced betrayal, pain, and heartbreak, but I had turned it all into fuel to rise again. I was no longer just a husband seeking revenge. I was Mark, a man who had learned to redefine himself and embrace the opportunities life had to offer. As I left the club that night, the trophy in hand, I felt lighter than I had in years. I was ready for whatever lay ahead, knowing that I had the strength to overcome any obstacle. This was not just a victory for me. It was a testament to resilience, self-discovery, and the realization that true power comes from within. I was done letting others dictate my happiness. I was ready to embrace my future on my own terms. In the days following my victory at the charity tournament, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Winning had been exhilarating, sure, but it was the journey, the transformation that truly mattered. I had taken my pain and used it as a catalyst for growth. I wasn't just a good golfer anymore. I was becoming a man with ambition and grit, someone who wouldn't back down from challenges, whether on the course or in life. As the weeks rolled into months, I continued to compete and improve my game. With every tournament I entered, I became more confident, not just in my skills but in my ability to face life's adversities head-on. I found myself surrounded by a new circle of friends who respected me for my tenacity and drive, and I thrived in that environment. But sometimes, late at night, when the world around me was quiet, I would reflect on the past. I thought about Caroline and Jason occasionally, but instead of anger or resentment, I felt a sense of pity. They were stuck in their own web of choices, anchored to a past that was filled with lies and deception. I had moved on, while they remained mired in their decisions. One evening, I received a text from an unknown number. Curiosity piqued, I opened it to find a message from Caroline. "Can we talk? I'd like to apologize properly this time." My initial reaction was to ignore it. I had no interest in reopening old wounds, but I found it hard to resist the urge to engage. I replied, "What do you want to talk about?" She responded swiftly, "I realize I've been selfish. After everything that happened, I've had time to reflect. I see how my choices affected you. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I would like to explain in person if you're willing." After some contemplation, I decided to meet her. I felt strong enough to face her, to hear her out without being dragged back into her emotional chaos. We agreed to meet at a cafe where we had often gone during our marriage. When I arrived, I saw her sitting at a small table, her posture reflecting anxiety. A part of me felt a pang of sympathy at the sight. She looked smaller than I remembered. I sat down, and for a moment we were both silent, the weight of our shared history looming over us. "I want to start by saying I'm sorry," she began, her voice shaky. "I was foolish and short-sighted. I thought I could find something exciting in an affair, but I ended up losing everything that mattered. I lost you." I nodded, feeling a mixture of emotions flare within me. "You did lose me, Caroline. You made your choices and they had consequences. I'm happy now, but that doesn't erase the hurt you caused me. Honestly, I never expected you to be this strong," she continued, her eyes searching mine for understanding. "When I saw you at the tournament, I realized how much I underestimated you. You've become someone incredible, and I'm sorry I couldn't see that before. Maybe if you had taken the time to appreciate our relationship instead of seeking validation elsewhere, I replied, my tone firm but calm. If you had communicated what you were feeling, we could have worked through it together. Her expression shifted from regret to acknowledgement. You're right. I should have talked to you, but I was scared. I thought I needed something else to fill that void. I was wrong. I felt her sincerity, and while I didn't know if I could fully forgive her, I recognized that she was attempting to take responsibility for her actions. I appreciate your honesty. It's taken me a long time to get to where I am now, and I don't want to dwell on the past anymore. It's not about forgiveness for me. It's about understanding that I'm moving forward without you. She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. I get that. I just wanted to say I'm genuinely sorry for what I did, and I hope you find the happiness you deserve. With that, I felt a sense of closure. I had faced her, held my ground, and allowed her to express her regret without letting it sway me from my path. Thank you for saying that, Caroline. I wish you well, but I think it's best if we go our separate ways. As I stood up to leave, I felt lighter. It was as if I had finally unshackled myself from the chains of my past. I had learned that the true power of moving on lies not in revenge, but in self-empowerment and growth. I had become someone who refused to be defined by someone else's actions. As I walked away from the cafe, I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the world lift off my shoulders. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing I had the strength and determination to navigate life's challenges. In the months that followed, I continued to excel in golf and in my personal life. I found joy in new friendships and even began exploring new interests beyond the fairway. Each day was a reminder that I was not just surviving, I was thriving. In sharing my story, I hope others who have faced betrayal can find solace in knowing that healing is possible. Sometimes the best revenge is not about getting back at those who hurt you. It's about rising above and creating a life that is truly your own. I'm Mark, and I'm back on my own terms, ready to conquer whatever comes next.